off as they're getting ready to start the fall semester at San Diego State University, and a lot of those classes will be virtual as we go into Monday due to the rain that's been coming through. And then, of course, that America's Finest half marathon that was supposed to happen this morning got canceled due to the state of emergency. They did a virtual event yesterday, 5,000 runners either in town or locals who were hoping to lace up the shoes and get going with the half marathon. A lot of training. But then you get Hilary coming on in and says, now we're just not going to be doing that today. We're also watching for a lot of the local attractions. So many people come to San Diego to maybe visit Zoo Safari Park in Escondido. If you've never been there, it's pretty awesome. It's I'll tell you, it seems like that, right? Because often we go through the fall season and it's quick, but you've got a rain event like this and people just go inside and say, all right, maybe we'll just binge watch some television and some movies. You don't get this type of energy that often, so why not enjoy it inside?
I love a rainy day watching TV, so yeah, they can enjoy it. Thanks very much, Craig Herrera. We appreciate it. Now let's take a look at some of the biggest threats from Hilary, and just continuing to be incredibly heavy rain. You're seeing dark skies there across portions of Imperial Beach, California, really across much of Southern California, stretching into the desert Southwest, all dealing with what is now at times just light rain. Heavier rain ultimately is still going to be moving in as we continue to see what is a very, very widespread storm. Again, the center of the storm sitting about 150 miles to the south of the Mexican border, and yet we are still seeing some of these rounds of rain and the wind already beginning to move into the region. Currently, some of those winds anywhere from 10 to 20 miles an hour, but the ground's beginning to get saturated, and as that wind ultimately does increase, the ground has had a little bit time to rain. You start to see winds up to 30, 40 miles an hour. That could be enough to bring down some trees, bring down some power lines, and it does seem as though that perhaps will be an issue. If you're looking for a dry spot there in Los Angeles, it's not coming anytime soon. Rain consistently in the forecast throughout the entire day today all the way until tomorrow. We are going to be continuing to track this storm system as it impacts Southern California, the desert Southwest, ultimately pushing further to the north. You can continue to get all of your updates here. Stick with Fox Weather.
Electrolyte, instant hydration.
Small businesses are the heart of the United States economy.
And in many states make up a large portion, if not the majority portion of all businesses in that state.
It's important for Congress to fight for us because we're the backbone of the community.
Cholula's authentic blend of premium Mexican flavors makes your thing the best thing. Welcome to La Familia, mother of sauce.
Welcome back to Fox Weather. We have our newest Tropical Storm Hilary advisory. New information just coming in here to Fox Weather. Hilary has made landfall. Hilary made landfall over the northern Baja California peninsula. This landfall happening here since our last update. It's been kind of running there along the Baja Peninsula this entire time, but we now officially have our landfall. We've been interacting with it, and in that motion, weakening as it's continued to make this track. And that has been exactly as we have forecasted it to do all along. As this storm has lifted further and further to the north, it's running over a little bit colder waters, certainly colder waters, and it has continued to weaken as it's made that move. Still sitting between 100 and 150 miles south there of the Mexican border, and where we saw that landfall. Otherwise, what are we looking at? Well, pay attention to that banner at the top of your screen. You saw winds now at 65 miles an hour. That continues to be a tropical storm. But just in our previous update, the winds were at 80 miles an hour. So we are running through a condition, and where I'm being told here by Cody that the center, you see that motion right there? The center jogged just a little bit there to the right. It had been staying actually fairly consistent and steady there, moving off towards the north and towards the northwest, but now we see just that slight little turn to the right. It's a tough center to make out, even as you look at that graphic there. A lot of cloud cover by it, but all of the rain is actually well out in front of this center. The winds will certainly be stronger there by the center, but the rain continuing to track further and further up to the north, and it's why we're seeing flooding just there north of Los Angeles. Some of the heaviest showers actually at this point there to the northern portions of Los Angeles, as a flash flooding warning is currently in place. Radar indicated the threat is considerable. This is not a surprise. We know that these rounds of very heavy rain are going to be moving through these areas. And again, it's just a part of the country where you typically don't see this kind of rain. You get to the north of Los Angeles there, you're starting to get into the hills and a little bit more mountainous terrain. That also causes additional problems because all of that rain has to then suddenly rush down into the valleys, into the streams. Flash flooding becomes a major concern. What are we looking at here? 2 inches? Is that 2 inches of rain? 2.5 inches? 2.5 inches of rain. Again, Los Angeles in the month of August gets 1/100th of an inch of rain in an entire month. That is the seasonal average, and we're talking about 2.5 inches. And heavy rain is still currently coming down. The storm is still over 100 miles south of the border, so there is a long time left to go where you're going to be seeing more rounds of rain lifting up through this entire region as it slowly makes that track. Winds are gusting up to 78 miles an hour. The storm is really starting to intensify here. You know, we do expect this kind of happening rounds of times where the winds pick up a little bit more, the rains pick up a little bit more. These are strong winds though, and it's been raining now long enough that I won't be surprised if we start to see power lines going down, trees going down. And this is of course just here over the last 3 hours. Backing back out though, some of the heaviest rain currently out over the ocean, but northern, just there north of Los Angeles is where we're seeing the heaviest showers. Off a little further to the west, Palm Springs. These are all areas where the tropical storm warning is still in place. Remember, this is the first ever tropical storm warning that you've ever seen in Southern California. It's never been seen before. The last time a tropical storm entered into Southern California was 1939. This is a thing that simply does not happen. Some of our live cameras here across the state. Yes, overcast, no surprise here. As far north as Bakersfield, already overcast. Rain ultimately is going to continue to track north with this entire system, getting showers into the northern Rockies. Idaho will be ultimately climbing to the, the storm will ultimately be running as far north as Idaho. Hilary right now is sitting 150 miles to the south of, Hilary right now is sitting 150 miles just south of the Mexican border. You're currently looking at some of the conditions that are worse currently in the United States from this system. Winds there 15, 20 miles an hour, but we have seen gusts up to, was it 70, 80 miles an hour, at least at some of those higher elevations. Raining in Los Angeles has been substantial. There is no plan in this ending anytime in sight. You're looking at consistently all the way through today, all the way into the overnight hours. It won't be until early tomorrow morning that you start to see the system get far enough to the north and all of that moisture drug up a little further north that you start to clear off on the backside of that system. Here we can run through a forecast model. I know if you're in Los Angeles, you already know that the rain is coming down really heavily. It is likely going to continue. Again, we said that this storm, even though there's so much rain there across the Southern California area, there's going to be more rain as this system approaches here over the next several hours. Los Angeles there at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Rain probably lingering all the way through the overnight hours. It takes a while for this to finally push itself far enough to the north where you start to talk about drying off again, all the way through your drive tomorrow morning until finally you start to maybe clear off a little bit by the time you get into lunchtime tomorrow. So a long ways to go where you're looking at additional rain. And how about this? This is a topic we have not talked about lately, the tornado threat because of this. You typically do see a lower end tornado threat when tropical storms or hurricanes run onto shore. Now, people maybe in the east side of the eastern half of the country are used to this. It's that front right quadrant where you get a setup where there's some humidity, there's some storm energy, and you can see the upper level winds turning. You can get these are never huge, massive, long-running tornadoes, but you do get these little spin-up tornadoes, and we're talking about tornadoes here in a part of the country where you do not get tornadoes. The high desert country, it was including areas over towards Flagstaff, nearly Phoenix, Palm Springs. Very unlikely that people have ever seen a tornado out there, and the setup is such that the possibility is there. Our Fox model, and this is again, we're tracking out the entire storm, where all the moisture, where all the rain is going to be running here, taking you now till 8 p.m. this evening. Plenty of heavy rain continuing to track up across the area. Into Central California, the Central Valley. By the time you get at midnight, probably the biggest, bulkiest heavy bit of the rain, then getting into Northern California and over towards Reno. Nevada is going to see a bunch of rain before ultimately on Monday, we're running out of our screen there, but there's going to be heavy rains across portions of Idaho, particularly in the Rockies. All of this is going to be a little bit more intense. The rain's going to be a little bit heavier in some of the more mountainous regions. I'm sure you've heard this, but all of this moisture just gets kind of wrung out like a wet rag as you start to go over the mountains. It forces all of that moisture out. So you're seeing some of the areas here where the rain is still yet to come. And again, we've already seen 2.5 inches just outside of Los Angeles of rain, and you're looking at some of those orange colors, could be another 5 inches. At high elevations, we could be talking about anywhere between 8 to 10 inches of total precipitation at some of those higher elevations as that rain continues to work its way out. Live camera here in California, yes, another spot where the rain continues to fall. I'm laughing because every camera that we look at this point looks very similar. It's such a huge, huge storm, 1,000 miles from the center of circulation stretching all the way up to the northern end of where you're seeing some of the lighter rain. In this scene, we've seen it time after time after time. So far, the winds haven't been awful, but it is just consistently dreary and raining across much of California as a result, and it is because it's been so consistent, it's been so widespread, that flooding continues to be our biggest concern. So this is the flash flood threat. The heaviest rain, it's not anticipated to be right along the coast. It is in the mountainous areas. Everything you're looking at in that red region, extreme flash flood threat. The reason is, again, the rain lands on the mountains. It has to rush down into some of those valleys. Flooding becomes a really big concern. Palm Springs, a place where you just typically don't see it. Rain still to come. And this is our forecasted model there. You start to see those oranges is talking 5 inches. The reds, you're getting up to 8 to 10 inches. And again, that is usually associated with some more elevation that squeezes out some of that moisture. Where does it go? Well, it rushes into the valleys, the creeks. I would say it's going to be in the places where there's usually flooding, but this is not a part of the country where there usually is flooding. So it's a little bit tougher of a situation for these folks. Palm Springs, it has actually been raining too much so far today, but we are expecting that to intensify here. There's your forecast. The wind gusts obviously climbing as you get towards 4 p.m. that is when winds will really be beginning to climb. Flood alerts across this entire region, yes, stretching as far north as Idaho. The huge storm system that we're going to be continuing to track. This is, of course, going to be something that we're going to be watching all day long here on Fox Weather. It was a Category 4 hurricane. It is now a tropical storm. It is continuing to weaken, but the threats remain real. Rain is the biggest threat. Of course, we're going to be tracking it all. Stick with us here on Fox Weather.
I'm Brian Norcross with a Hurricane HQ Minute on what to do with a boat when a hurricane is coming. It's a big challenge. In most hurricanes, boat owners can put slack in their lines to let the boat ride up and down as the storm surge comes in. But that's not always going to work, like in Hurricane Andrew. Here at Black Point Marina near Homestead, Florida, it seemed like random luck which boats survived the rising water pushed in by Andrew. How about a dry dock? Well, that only works if the structure can stand up to the pressure from Category 4 or 5 winds. Even a sailboat moored outside the marina was not immune, riding inland as the surge pushed through the mangroves. Of course, we saw all this in spades when Hurricane Ian forced up to 15 feet of water up the rivers and canals and into the marinas in and around Fort Myers. Part of owning a boat is knowing what you're going to do if a hurricane could affect your area. But the fact is, there's never going to be enough safe harbor or good options for a hurricane like Andrew or Ian. Hurricane HQ has you covered. Stay informed this hurricane season. Download the Fox Weather app right now. I'm Brian Norcross with a Hurricane HQ Minute on the question, are coastal areas in the U.S. better protected now, or are they in worse shape than when the great hurricanes of the past came ashore? The answer to the question is mixed. Here on Miami Beach, the beach is much larger than it was decades ago, and there's an extensive dune system which will slow down the surge except in the most extreme storm. But many places along the coast don't have coastal defenses. A lot of money has been spent making the city of Miami Beach more resilient, and more expensive projects are planned. These dunes aren't just piles of sand. They're made stronger by what's under the sand and what's growing on top. Indigenous plants were chosen to make the dunes as storm resistant as possible. On the other side of the island, the streets are being raised to account for sea level rise and to help hold back storm surge. Streets that used to flood in heavy rain now drain with no problem. But in historic Charleston, South Carolina, and along the mid-Atlantic coast, where the sea level is rising and the land is sinking, the streets flood in minor storms. This flooding was from Hurricane Nicole in 2022, but this scene is being repeated more often now in recent years. National Hurricane Center projections show the daunting problem. Look at the red covering many parts of the city of Charleston and the surrounding area on this map. Those areas could see storm surge over 9 feet deep, and that's from a Category 3. Here on Miami Beach, a powerful storm could push storm surge over these dunes and into the city, and that's a problem. But the daunting challenge comes from the millions of people that have moved near the water all along the U.S. coast. It's hard to imagine how they'll all get to safety when a big hurricane is coming. Hurricane HQ has you covered. Stay informed this hurricane season. Download the Fox Weather app right now.
Electrolyte, instant hydration.
We are back now on Fox Weather as we continue to track Hilary and its impacts not only on Baja California, but as it closes in on the United States mainland. Places like Los Angeles, our nation's second largest city, feeling the effects of Hilary. San Diego, California, also feeling the effects. Literally, for the first time ever, we have tropical storm warnings in effect for our nation's second largest city. You can see the swaths of rain that are unfortunately going to bring in what the local National Weather Service is calling perhaps life-threatening flooding in parts of the Southwest, especially in the desert areas. As you know, if you're joining us from, say, parts of the East Coast, the Southeast, you think 1 to 2 inches of rain, not a huge deal when we're talking about rain showers and thunderstorms in, say, Miami, Florida, or Atlanta, Georgia, or even New York City. However, when you're talking about 1 to 2 inches of rain on a very dry landscape, the soil does not absorb that water at 1 to 2 inches. That leads to runoff, and that leads to the flash flood concerns that we're expecting. In fact, over 20 million Americans are under flood alerts as we speak here on Fox Weather, and it's one of the reasons why, with Hilary continuing to work up the West Coast, that flooding is going to become a real and present danger. So we're going to continue to watch that in the coming hours and really the coming days. Here's what some video looks like out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And what you'll note too, this was taken back on Friday. Look at the amount of flooding. The problem that we're going to see in really the hours, if not the days to come, is in places like Las Vegas, Nevada. We have what are called concrete washes. You're familiar with those. Those are basically drainage basins for rainwater from the mountains to kind of follow along. We also have what are called stormwater channels, and it is those stormwater channels, like what you're seeing here, that are going to fill up with water. That water is going to race down the mountain. It's going to race through neighborhoods. It is going to race through cities, places such as, just south of Los Angeles, for example. We'll have to watch because those stormwater channels will be, this is according to the National Weather Service out of Las Vegas, saying potentially dangerous, if not deadly areas to be near. So again, desert Southwest, it's going to be an ongoing serious situation as Hilary continues its trek up toward the north. And as it does so, and as it closes in on the border between the United States and Mexico, notice the wind direction here. As you know, if you're joining us from San Diego, right around here-ish or so, we have the San Diego mountains. What's going to happen is an orographic effect. And that's basically when we have a weather maker like Hilary that's going to interact with the topography, the landscape. And basically what happens is all of that moisture is going to run right up against these mountains and get squeezed out like a sponge. And all of that is going to lead to the heavy rainfall. All of that rain is going to then run down the mountains, and as it does so, it's going to fill those concrete washes, it's going to fill those water storm channels, and potentially lead to some life-threatening flash flood concerns. The big question is, how much rain do we receive over a period of time? Let's, for example, take 1 hour. So in an hour's period, here by the way is San Diego, how much rain do we need to actually see that risk for flooding? It's not going to take much. The areas shaded in red, and you can see them kind of dotting parts of San Diego County. What we're anticipating, note Palm Springs is in that as well. That's where Fox Weather's Nicole Valdez is at. We'll be checking in with her momentarily. But watch this. A half an inch of rain may lead to flash flooding in places like Palm Springs, California, where you can see underneath in this video in Palm Springs, people are desperately packing those sandbags because they're trying to protect not only their property, but really their life as well and their livelihood. So hundreds of people congregating to do that in Palm Springs because of the fact that, again, all it's going to take is less than a half an inch of rain over an hour's period of time. And that is going to lead to, again, what could be dangerous, if not deadly flooding. So this is going to be a concern that we really watch over the course of the next, say, 12 to 24 hours through tomorrow morning. Death Valley, what's so interesting about Death Valley, of course, known for its record-setting heat. It actually set a record, a worldwide record, at 134 degrees in Death Valley. But the records that we could be talking about over the course of the next, say, 24 to 36 hours is record rain. This is going to be prolific because Death Valley out of Hilary could actually see 2 to 3 years worth of rain. This is going to be an area of the United States and really in the more desert regions of Southeast California that will have to watch for some significant, if not extreme, flooding. The National Weather Service does not put this out very frequently, and when it does put out extreme flood concerns for parts of the United States, means you need to take this very seriously. This is just east of Los Angeles, just east of San Diego, toward what we call the Imperial Valley. So it's going to be those valley regions of California, for example, Palm Springs, toward Barstow. This is going to be right along, say, Interstate 15, I-40, I-10, even parts of I-8 as you're working from Imperial westbound towards San Diego and vice versa. Believe it or not, we've already seen, this was yesterday, flash flooding already in parts of Southern California. The reason why this is going to become an increased threat is because Hilary's not done just yet. We're expecting to see more rain, again, in places like Palm Springs, California. And Palm Springs is exactly where Fox Weather's Nicole Valdez is at. Nicole, we see people working behind you, packing sandbags. What's the very latest in Palm Springs?
No audio. Coming back. Stand by.
And Nicole, we're going to check back in with you in just a moment. We're having a couple of audio issues, but you could clearly see behind Nicole, you could see the people working tirelessly at this point to pack those sandbags because, again, places like Palm Springs could experience that dangerous, if not life-threatening, flash flooding. They're going to continue to pack those sandbags. Here's the reason why, because in Palm Springs through Tuesday, we're expecting anywhere between 2 to 3 inches of rain. This is generally speaking. But as you know, if you've ever been to Palm Springs, it's absolutely gorgeous. One of the things that makes Palm Springs so beautiful is the mountains, right? And notice that toward the tops of a few of those mountains, you're looking at Cabazon there, we're anticipating anywhere between 3 to 5, if not, and I'm going to circle it for you right here, there's a little bullseye of 5 to 8 inches of rain. And notice that towards some of the valley regions, this is toward the Morongo Valley, that is an indication of between 8 to 12 inches of rain possible out of Hilary. That could absolutely lead to life-threatening flash flooding, and that's why this is such a concern. And interestingly enough, obviously, all of that rain begins to run down those mountains. And so I'm going to hop back to that graphic just for a quick second because I want to show what happens. But either way, what you'll notice, though, is, again, that rain will begin to flow down those mountains. And again, so friends and family in, say, some of the valley regions here really need to watch out. San Bernardino, you can see where Riverside is and where San Bernardino is there. Again, that is where flash flooding could be possible, and it is the reason why California Governor Gavin Newsom actually declared a state of emergency for parts of Southern California. He did that yesterday on Saturday because of all the rain that we're anticipating. So moving this forward for you in time so that you can plan out not only the afternoon, but you can plan out the evening and plan out what things look like into early tomorrow morning. Let's focus.
Sometimes it takes a different approach
Today, that's Mrs. Johnson, right?
to imagine your future differently. With Capella University's game-changing FlexPath format, you can earn your nursing degree without putting life on hold.
Everyone, I have an announcement to make. I'm going to get my master's degree online at Grand Canyon University.
Click now to learn about our online degree programs. Find your purpose at
land, it starts to lose the energy that supports the further development of those tropical systems. And typically, the lifeline of these systems is warm tropical water, right? That's not what we're seeing here. Those water temperatures, by the way, only in the 60s and 70s, so it's not very warm. It runs into land. It ran into, again, northern Baja California just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. It's going to lose a lot of steam, so it's going to look a little bit more rugged through San Diego. Nevertheless, rain, moderate to heavy at times, and some wind is going to be an issue. Notice that by this evening, it starts to roll up I-5, Los Angeles, some of the mountains in this area, San Bernardino's. We're expecting to see not only the wind, but the rain. What's so interesting, too, is the wind out of this could really be prolific. Even though it's still considered a tropical storm, we could be talking about winds in excess of 70, and even in some spots, Joshua Tree National Park in specific, the National Weather Service out of San Diego, highlighting that that could be a zone where we could see winds of 80 miles per hour. You think to yourself, all right, well, isn't 80 mile per hour winds hurricane force winds? Yes, however, it's a channeling effect that we're going to see. These winds right here that you're seeing are going to channel themselves through the mountains, and as that channeling effect takes place, that speeds up the winds, and that's the reason why in places like Joshua Tree National Park, we could be talking about over 80 mile per hour winds. Friends and family from Bakersfield, California, even up toward beautiful Fresno, we're expecting by tomorrow morning, this is going to be around midnight, we're still fighting through the rain. Look at our friends and family in Las Vegas. Of course, we have Fox Weather's Max Gordon that's been stationed with excellent coverage in Vegas through the duration of Hilary. He's been showing us video and pictures of the ongoing rain toward the Strip. Check this out, friends and family in a very popular vacation destination, Cabo San Lucas, right? Known, of course, for the arches of Cabo. You can see that on the left side of your screen. You typically can take a little boat out that way, and there's actually times at Cabo where the water recedes to a point to where you can actually see some sand by those arches. That is obviously not the case. Look at the size of those waves. Enormous waves striking the coastline. Unfortunately, erosion is going to be a big problem out by Cabo and really up and down the California coast and, of course, Baja California coast. So that's what we're going to be watching for you throughout the duration of this event as well. And keep in mind, we want you to stick with us right here on Fox Weather. Nicole Valdez.
Electrolyte Instant Hydration.
Small businesses are the heart of the United States economy.
And in many states make up a large portion, if not the majority portion of all businesses in that state.
It's important for Congress to fight for us because we're the backbone of the community.
New government mandates targeting pharmacy benefits would increase costs and restrict choices employers rely on to provide affordable, high-quality, and competitive prescription drug coverage. Tell Congress, reject new government mandates in healthcare. Protect our pharmacy benefits.